शॉर्ट नॉईजला आपण जाणार आणि तुम्हाला छोटं हे सेंटरमध्ये बाहेर पडतं क्लास.
To reach the first level, which is located 64 meters below the surface. That's why behind me there is a shaft, many steps, 380, so please be careful. Also very heavy door behind me. Please hold the door past two others so nobody will get hurt. Good luck. Thank you.
थंड वाटते ना. पटमस्त कॅप्चर कर म्हणलं ना.
There are 9 levels. Level 9 is located 327 meters below the surface. On these 9 levels, there are more than 2,000 chambers, 200 kilometers of underground passages, corridors. Don't worry, we will see only 1% of this underground treasury. We will start from level 1, we will reach level 3, 135 meters below the surface, and then if you are good, the lift will take you up to the surface. It will take you about 2 hours. Safety rules, please stay close to me. Watch the floor uneven, yes? Okay. Tall people, low ceiling. Of course, smoking is forbidden. Please don't touch any electric wires, telephones, yes? Also, we will pass through very heavy wooden door, ventilation door. Please always hold the door past to others, so again, nobody will get hurt. If you have any questions or any problems, I always will be the first one. So the final question is, are you feeling okay? Can we start?
Yes.
Let's do it. Take a look at this huge block of salt. We call it barrel. Barrel is hanging, yes?
Yeah.
So such a barrels were produced here, product from our mine. They were very heavy. They could weigh 500 kilograms, 800 kilograms, and they were extremely expensive. Can you imagine you could buy a few villages together with people for one such a barrel in the Middle Ages? Salt was the only material to preserve food, so king who had salt was very rich and country was rich as well. Most chambers, most corridors we will see today, they come from 17th, 18th, 19th or 20th century. Right now let's approach the first wooden ventilation door.
hold the door. Yeah. Hold the door. ये देखो ना डिफरेंस वाला
So we are still very close to the shaft, so there is a strong wind current coming directly from the shaft. So you need to close the back door and then I can open the front door. That's how the ventilation system works, like the doors regulates the flow of the air. So please remember about that.
Fixing 49 to fixing 85.
Just a few steps. Okay, please. Yeah. Notice a lot of wood. Yes? Why? Wood was the best material to protect empty corridors, empty chambers from collapses. According to the miners, pine wood was the best. Very often we will see such a wooden structure, just like the one around here. It is called cast in Polish, crib in English, just one technique of protection. The chamber we are right now in comes from 17th century, but of course wood is not original. Later I will show you original wooden structure, for example 300-year-old. In a moment we will enter small, wide, narrow corridors. Why? Miners painted everything white in the past to make it wider. Remember, in the past miners used tallow torches, later oil lamps. Electricity and carbide lamps were introduced in the 20th century, so very often to make wider, like a light reflection from the wall, they painted everything white. Let's find out. Yes. Another stop here. So don't complain if we have to stay underground just like right now because of the traffic, lots of tourists. The air in the salt mine is perfect for our lungs. There is a lot of sodium chloride in the air. You know that salt can kill bacteria. No wonder on the third level, 135 meters below the surface, there is underground spa for patients who suffer from asthma, breathing problems, laryngitis. Patients come here for 2-3 weeks. They spend every day about 4 hours and they get better. The joke about underground spa says, if you stay here 2 hours as tourist, you will live longer 2 weeks. Sorry to disappoint you, I'm going to be 500. Yes. So in front of us, there is a small device which was used for vertical transport. Miners call it hand cross. 4 strong miners had to work here, pushed and lift materials. Later we will see different types of machines miners use for the incline, horizontal or vertical transport. The last thing, take a look on the floor, reconstruction of wooden boards. Such boards were put on the floor so it was easier to push different types of carts. Later we will see them. Yes. So in front of us, there is a small device which was used for vertical transport. Miners call it hand cross. 4 strong miners had to work here, pushed and lift materials. Later we will see different types of machines miners use for the incline, horizontal or vertical transport. The last thing, take a look on the floor, reconstruction of wooden boards. Such boards were put on the floor so it was easier to push different types of carts. Later we will see. And you will see the date 1666, 17th century. We may ask why salt here in this place in Wieliczka. About 13 million years ago, in Miocenic period, there was a sea here. Then came hot climate, water evaporated, leaving sodium chloride at the bottom. And then came tectonic movements, earthquakes, which dislocated the layers. We don't have continuous layers of salt, just huge lump of salt scattered everywhere because of the earthquake, yes? That's why, especially on the first level, we will see corridors which run in really different directions, because in the past, miners didn't know where the salt was. So they were digging a corridor, and whenever they found pure salt, they started to excavate. Let's move a little bit forward. Just a few steps forward. So as I said, Szczęść Boże, and one miner, there are about 500 miners still working underground, and they of course protect us, do the maintaining and also work. I will also talk about it. So what I was trying to tell you, that it was hard to find salt because of the dislocation. That's why the corridors, especially on the first level, 17th century, go in really different directions. But whenever they found pure salt, they excavated. Sometimes it took them 20, 40 or even 100 years to take salt from one place. We call it chamber, right? And we will visit such a huge chambers today. This means a few generations could work in one place for many, many years. We will approach the door and then the next part of the story.
खाऊन बघितलं काय तू खारट आहे दाखव खाऊन दाखव दाखव ना
Pay attention to this chamber. This is the only one on a tourist route where miners use explosives, so the shape of this chamber is a little bit different. Finally, in this chamber, second artificial lake, and we will have a meeting with the ghost. Please come on my side. It's original, about 300-year-old. You can touch it. It's as hard as a rock. Wood, perfect material in the mine. Wood can petrify in the mine with times. Opposite side, water was a problem for the miners, as I mentioned, and in the past they used such a wooden channels, just like the one on the left side, which carried water up to the main wooden container, and then water had to be pumped. Later we will see manual pumps from 15th or 16th century. Water was a problem. Gas methane was even worse threat. Let's find out about methane. Again, it will be noisy here, but finally I will answer the question you asked one of you people at times. In front of you, there's a reconstruction of Neolithic village. 6,000 years ago, in this area, there were salty springs on the surface, and Neolithic people made some special pots from clay, cut of whole shape. They put brine, salty water inside, boiled over the fire, and received white, dry salt. Many remains of these pots were found here, so we can assume that Neolithic people produced salt at a big scale. And then with time, salty springs disappeared from the surface, and people started to dig the first wells. And it happened here in the 13th century. While digging a well, they discovered underground rock salt. 30 meters below the surface, they found rock salt. So they started to build the mine. That's why we can say that the mine is more than 700 years old, because the first real shafts were built here about 1280, 1290. The name Wieliczka, the city you came to, comes from two Latin words, magnum sal. Magnum sal means great salt in English, Wieliczka in Polish. The town was founded in 1290, so it's a very old medieval town, always closely connected with the mine. So that's the first underground chapel on our way, Holy Cross Chapel from the 19th century. Look at the beautiful wooden altar, wooden crucifix, 100-year-old, in very good condition. Unlike those two kneeling monks, they are made out of salt and they are highly destroyed because of the leaching activity of the damp air, but the figures are older, about 300-year-old. They were brought here from a different chapels. Remember, 40 chapels were built here. Take a look at the opposite side. Beautiful wooden statue, Mary with the infant, 300-year-old. And also take a look at the wall here and over there. These are the traces of old manuals miners' job. How did they make those barrels of salt I showed you before? So they used pickaxes, hammers, iron wedges, mullets. They tried to hew off huge block of salt from the wall. Then they rounded away edges to make a barrel shape, so it was easier to roll such a barrel through a narrow corridor until the shaft. And the last thing here, this time take a look above your heads and admire a beautiful chandelier, which is made of pure salty crystals together with wooden parts, 19th century work. In a moment, we will enter the most beautiful chapel dedicated to St. King. I hope you remember the legend about Hungarian princess. So let's go.
Let's go. चला परना.
Here to take salt from this chamber structure was built monument to miners, was made by Antoni Wyrodek, the same man who made Last Supper in the chapel of St. Kinga, and the last words. Miners were missing light all the time. That's why they decided to decorate this wall with something like window. Inside Polish old mining song, the last line, Szczęść Boże. Szczęść Boże means God bless you. Our tradition says, even nowadays, when we see someone underground, we still say, God bless you, Szczęść Boże. Very easy Polish word. Legend about Hungarian princess.
When a Polish prince called Bolesław proposed to Hungarian Princess Kinga, her father, King Bela, insisted on a traditional dowry. But Kinga came up with another idea. She knew that no rock salt was mined in Poland and decided to ask her father for a group of salt miners. She wished to find salt in Poland with their help. Without a second thought, the king presented to Kinga an entire salt mine in Hungary. The princess visited the mine on her way to Krakow. She came near the mine shaft and, surprisingly, threw her engagement ring into it. When she arrived to her new country, she requested the miners to look for salt. The result came soon. The miners discovered salt deposits near Krakow that gave Poland centuries-long prosperity. They say that Kinga's engagement ring was found in the first salt lump extracted.
So again, please remember the legend. Now, those figures were made in 1967. Kinga in front of us. On the left side, there is a Polish knight. Yes?
Yeah.
Take a look behind Polish knight. There are stalactites hanging from the ceiling. Yes? Can you see?
Yes.
Now, miners call them spaghetti. So later, more spaghetti. But again, the chamber comes from 17th century, 1642. The first level, the oldest one.
So that's how we found out about this salt.
The same water leakage and wooden protection. And stalactites hanging again from the ceiling. Now this chamber is dedicated to Polish king Kazimierz the Great. You see his bust in front of you. He ruled Poland in the 14th century. In 1368, he wrote a special book, it was called Statute, in which he... So there is a vertical axle with the attachment for the horses, transmission pulley, the brake, and here opening of the shaft. Maximum capacity of this machine about 2 tons. As you can see, everything was made out of wood except for some iron parts. First, such machines were placed on the surface. Together with horses, 16th, 17th century, the machines were installed underground. By the way, take a look at typical wooden hut, which was built in the past. Different thing, take a look one more time at the barrels. Typical product from our mine, very expensive. King Kazimierz the Great. If you visit Krakow, you will see a Jewish quarter. Yes, maybe you have seen. He was the found area because of the mine. Please don't touch the statues, and again, please follow. In this corridor, there are some means of transport. Miners used for the incline and for the horizontal transport, not for the vertical yet. In the past, miners used such as sledges, just like the one on the left side, and miners pulled the sledges. Later, as I mentioned before, miners put such a wooden ducts on the floor, and they used carts, for example, like this one. This one was called dog. Why dog? These carts make funny sounds when they were pushed just because of the wheels, just like sounds of barking of a dog. Squeak, squeak, that's why miners call them dogs. Finally, in the 19th century, iron gates were introduced. You have traces on the floor, and miners use bigger carts and horses help them. I told you that the last horse left mine in 2002, but for example, in the 19th century, 60 horses were working underground and another 60 horses on the surface. Different thing, the levels are quite long. Can you imagine salt deposit goes for about 10 kilometers from east to the west and for about 1 kilometer from north to the south. So if we compare all of those levels, corridors, passages, again, it's a huge underground city, labyrinth, and again, we will see only 1% of it, which means you will cover about 4 kilometers and 800 steps, but including the one in the shaft. I have to tell you, so far so good. Wooden channels which carry water up to the main wooden container, and finally manual pump. I'm going to show you pump. Be careful, I'm turning on, okay? Salty water, those parts were rusty, but that's what they used. Also, they called this machine paternoster machine from London. Why? Because these small parts from the chain reminded miners small parts of the rosary, the training. So they were working and praying at the same time. You saw some dwarfs, yes? Right now we will approach a small chamber with more dwarfs. To the end of the corridor, but do not enter the chamber. Just a few steps, okay?
Okay.
Just a few steps.
Just
Thank you.
हे वो लोग निकाल बस
Well, we stop here because there is a water leakage. And that's why the walls of the corridor and the left side of the chamber covered with the salty flowers. Look closer here and tell me what type of vegetable they remind you. Sunflower, yes, very good, and minus golden cauliflowers. So sometimes spaghetti, sometimes cauliflowers. The last huge water leakage happened here in 1992. It was a huge disaster. Can you imagine 20,000 liters of fresh water flew per 1 minute into the mine? As a result, the last level was totally flooded. The mine was closed for almost like a year. Even nowadays, when we reach the lowest level, 327 meters below the surface, there is still quite a lot of mud. Now we can enter Stephen's brothers and one more, Antoni de Rode. 3 people worked together and completed the decorations. We are Joseph. Above, last hours of Jesus is fire below the cross. Side chapel, Mary with the infant God and children. If you look closer, you will see children being killed by the soldiers. Just seen from the Bible. Above, birth of Jesus Christ. All of the figures are made out of salt, including the baby. but the baby is made from different salt. This salt doesn't come from Wieliczka, comes from Kłodawa, different salt mine. There are iron oxide inside. That's why the color of the salt is different. Remember, our salt is gray. Pink salt comes from a different salt. This route in 1905, and miners decided to decorate it with artificial lakes. So for the first time, we will see it. The depth will be about 9 meters deep in the center. It will be like the total saturation of sodium chloride. You may get 320 grams of salt from 1 liter of this water. For example, horses were going home. Sometimes people, are asking, do they live here? No, but horses lived here, yes? Horses were introduced in the mine in the 16th century, and they had to spend all their life underground. We can imagine how difficult it was to transport animals down. Miners used thick ropes, and horses were lowered with the rope. So horse wouldn't survive going up and down, so horses lived here. Question: when did the last horse leave our mine? Take a guess. When did the last horse leave our mine?
Maybe 100 years back.
In 2002. In 2002. Her name was Barbara Baśka in Polish, very popular female name. You have to know that Barbara is a patron of miners, in general coal miners. Left side, behind the white gate and white door, there is a shaft with a lift. So you didn't ask me, how do people get to the mass? Nobody asked me. They go to this level by the lift, and then they have to cover from here to the chapel. Not so bad, for example, for the bright high heels, yes? They don't go from the first level. Right now we are exactly 110 meters below the surface. It's a second lower level, right? The chapel, 101. Right now, 110. But remember, our destination today is 135 meters below the surface. Are you happy about that?
Yes.
You have no choice. We just have to go. Now we can officially enter the museum.
Located at the depth of 135 meters below ground, the Novel Krakow Works Museum was founded by Alphonse Bush in number 1. There are also fragments of ropes as well as plastic saddles used for transporting both people and horses. The pictures show how horses were transported in the 17th and 18th centuries. Hand ropes were introduced into mining in 1495.
How was the salary of the miners here? Was it better to be a miner or to be a farmer?
All the buildings, apart from our hospital, still exist. There is another museum located in the castle with an impressive collection of salt shakers. They have about 1,000 salt cellars.